Out and join me on this frosty Minnesota December morning. I like to wake up and do something before anybody else wakes up and asks me to do something for them. That you're the king if you're the first one up. You get to rule the world and do whatever you want. I like coffee. It'll kick in. I'll start talking faster later. But I like to wake up and drink coffee and make fonts in the morning, and that's my wheelhouse. My time when I'm most productive is in the morning. I wake up and I do about 2 hours worth of work that's focused on a project, making fonts, doing kerning. I spend 2 hours working on an ampersand. And then I drink coffee, and then my boy wakes up, and the wife wakes up, and the 2 dogs wake up, and everybody goes crazy in the house for an hour and a half. And then I like to take a nap at around 9:30 when everybody's just getting into work. I like things that are made by hand or made by nature. That's something that unifies all my work, that there's flaws in it, there's something wonky, there's a little bit of tilt or a point that's in the wrong place, because I feel like we need more of that. The computers make it very easy to do everything correctly, and I like to make some mistakes. I'm a lefty. Lefties, raise your left hand. There you go. And I'm an artist. That's my archetype, I guess, is that I'm a creative. I can't help it. It's what I do every day. I make fonts with both hands, though. I'm kind of ambidextrous. I use a mouse with my right hand, but I draw with my left hand. And some fonts start on paper and others start on the computer. So, and then likewise with painting, I paint with my left hand and my right hand. I make fonts. There's my make. Ta-da. This is the new Fauché font I'm working on. It's based on the letters in the Fauché Tower, and it's got the dots in the middle. You can see the F-O-S from Fauché, look just that right. And this is a font that's coming out very soon. I make intellectual property, so that's what sets me apart from other artists, is that I kind of have a business sense, and I also have a really good understanding of math too, so there's a lot of things, a lot of numeric values that are associated with making fonts, so I have a combination of the left side of the brain and the right side of the brain, working with numbers and spreadsheets, and being creative too, working with curves and colors. There's Doctor Who. Any Doctor Who fans? Yeah, well, they don't talk about it. They kind of. But it's a big deal. They use my font Nicotine for everything on the Facebook page. Whenever there's a Doctor Who post, this is my Nicotine font. The capital I is a cigarette. and the lowercase L is too, I guess. That's pretty exciting. I made a custom version of my Nicotine font. They asked me to make Nicotine bold for Doctor Who for their 50th anniversary, and they've been using it in all sorts of things. I saw they made a Doctor Who coin in New Zealand that used my font around the rim, really tiny. That's kind of cool. And all the new Doctor Who ebooks, they use the Nicotine bold font. They hired me to do the Cyrillic character set, so I got to do all the Russian and Ukrainian Harry Potter stuff. which is kind of weird. But I love it. The Cyrillic alphabet overlaps with ours about 50%. A lot of our letters are in there. They've got a match, so I'm getting pretty good at those. I like that little obscure part of my job, making fonts for languages I can't read. Here's, again, the Gomorrah font. There's two fonts, Sodom and Gomorrah, and Sodom's kind of messed up, and Gomorrah's a little bit cleaner. I love how I can always recognize my fonts because I see the problems, that I can smell my fonts when I see them. Here, this is a very famous upside down N. It's the little nubbin on the bottom right corner, that's supposed to be on the top left. So it kind of has a feeling of a printer who made a mistake. And I see the kerning on the AT. Do you see that river going through there? Some type people see that kind of stuff. And that's how I can know it's my font when I see them sometimes, is those weird flaws. Here's Catching Fire is a sequel in the Hunger Games series. And I helped with this. I can't say that I took credit for the title here because it's based on a font called P22 Constructivist from the P22 font company. But Scholastic came to me and they asked me to make modifications to it to tie together this series of books they were doing. They had the Hunger Games cover where they had modified this type a little bit. I made the rest of the letters match up with that to tie together the series with a distinctive custom font with the permission of P22. But more exciting to me is my their use of the liquor store font for the author's name. Which, wow, that's whenever I see my fonts embossed in foil like that. That's what I made. And they also used it for the chapter headings inside. That's liquor store again. Which brings us to Minnesota, where there was a liquor store. So where my inspirations come from, they come from the signs I see every day. Here's an old neon sign. And there are a lot of architectural signage out there that has never been digitized, never made it into a font. So I was at a stoplight and I saw the liquor store sign and I said, I should make a font called Liquor Store. And then I did, and it's pretty quick work because there's no curves. It's mostly straight lines and round corners. And I admire liquor stores because they don't have to be real fancy with their typefaces. That if it's a big sign that says liquor and people can read it, they'll come in. So it's a very no-nonsense font, and those are the kinds of hand-painted and neon signage that influenced it. And then I got to contribute the lowercase letters because you kind of need those sometimes. And this is my personal favorite font that I've made, is Liquor Store, because it's just so versatile. It works good at like 400 point and 8 point, 6 point. It's just as legible, I think. And then sometimes I'll be influenced by one thing and I'll make the font and then I'll come back and I'll see it somewhere else. So the gold medal flower sign up there over the river downtown is also an inspiration for the liquor store font. The same kind of mechanics, because it's easy to do straight lines and round corners, and curves are really hard. The Grain Belt font was based on the Grain Belt bottle cap sign over the Mississippi River. I put bottle caps on the dots on the eyes. And I made the lowercase letters there, and that was based upon this sign that I was driving past every day, and eventually I just made the font. And then the Grain Belt company bought the font, and now they use it on bottles in Northeast. Their Northeast beer has the Grain Belt font, the Grain Belt font. And I can notice it because of the kerning on the AI. It's a little gappy on the bottles. Chunder is another charming font because it represents that some fonts are like people in that they can be attractive even if they're not pretty. And I think that's the instance with this font, that it's kind of messed up, but people really like it for some reason. And that's influenced by a place like that where the small businessman gets a quote from a sign painter and decides he can't afford it. So he does it himself. And that's you gotta admire that fearlessness, where it's like, I'll just go do it. I feel so bad talking about myself, but I mean, that's all I got. Is my body of work is so impressive. It blows me away. I love talking about it. But I gotta get some. I can't make a logo. I can't do a brand identity. I don't know how to make a poster. I'm pretty good at publication design, but ultimately I'm a specialist. I just make typefaces now. I'm a frustrated calligrapher because I'm a lefty. That calligraphers pull the pen across the page from left to right, and lefties push the pen across the page from left to right, and they smudge it with their hands. And I could never get it right, and I tried again and again. And I'm getting better. I've been doing it lately, drawing the words backwards, going, you know, because I know the basic shapes of the letters pretty good. And I'm a terrible illustrator. Whenever I like drawing all the time, but when it comes to making a specific illustration for a specific use, I get all nervous and I can't do it. All right, cool. So I started working at a music magazine. This is when I was a student at Macalester College. I studied fine art. I took a leave of absence and I went to work on a music magazine, and I learned about the music industry in Minneapolis. It was awesome. I did that for about 5 years. And these are some of the covers I made. It was a tabloid publication. And I made the fonts for myself to use in the magazine. And I also started doing more collaborative work there. This is a cover by Wayne Coyne from the Flaming Lips that he did back in the early 90s with a custom yellow ink and a custom blue. And I got to use some of my fonts down around the bottom, but mostly that's his design. But it was a great learning experience for me to run a publication. And I was the art director and eventually the editor. And I made all the fonts that were in the magazine too. And then people saw the fonts in the magazine and they wanted to buy a copy. I had designed all the fonts in the magazine except for the print symbol, and his name kept coming up back then. And it was somebody else's font. It drove me crazy, so I went through all of my fonts and I added the print symbol. And then the people at Paisley Park saw that, and they bought all my fonts, and then they used them. So I didn't design the original print symbol, but that's my Mr. Frisky version of it. And then they ended up using my fonts for a lot of Prince records back in the 90s when he was going by the symbol. In between the Purple Rain and the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, there was this period in the 90s where not a lot of people were listening to Prince, and he was using my fonts a lot. The Girl Scouts, wow, that's always so amazing when there's things from my childhood that they come to me and they say, "Can you make a font for us?" I'm like, yeah. And this was off the shelf. They bought my fonts. We traded cookies for fonts. And they used my fonts for the boxes that the Girl Scout cookies come in. That's my Mr. Frisky font. And Barbie used that one too. Mattel likes using my fonts. It's the Enchanted Halloween Barbie with Mr. Frisky on it. I do a lot of font workshops. I like to get people more involved in these events by having them make letters and we turn it into a font. So we made a font with the Sacramento Art Directors and Artists Club. It was called West Sac, which is named after West Sacramento. And it was a font we made in a day, and it had 52 contributors. Each person did a letter, uppercase and lowercase, so it came out kind of messed up, because it was 50 designers can't really do anything well if they all work at once. But it was that kind of schizophrenic and weird look that appealed to the art directors over there at the hotter headline book publishing company in England. And so these are all the Neil Gaiman books got reissued in the UK, and they used this West Sac font to tie the whole series together, which was exciting for me because that was the first time my fonts had ever been used embossed in gold foil on book covers, and it was by an artist who I'd always been a big fan of. So I've been reading his stuff since he was doing comic books when I was in high school, and now he does novels and he tweets a lot. Miley Cyrus, she's awesome. And I didn't do these fonts. This is her autobiography. It's about 5 or 6 years old. But I got to help them with a handwriting font for inside the book. This is Miley's handwriting font. her choreography needs a little work. That's before she was twerking. So she figured it out, you know. But very flattering. The smile is in there. That's one of the characters. It's a smiley, Miley font. And I got book credit there, the Miley handwriting font by Chank. So that's a career highlight. I like making handwriting fonts for famous people. I wish I could tell you all of them, but I can't. But, well, this is different. This is unrelated. This is from the TV show Intervention. It's about people with... What's that? Well, it's from the TV show Intervention. It's about people with drug addictions, and they used a custom font that I made just for them. That's actually available to you now if you want it. It's called Destructive Decisions. And they use it for their 5th and 6th season. The last 2 seasons, they just closed. But it was nice to see heroin users, and the meth heads, and the crack heads, all profiled using a font that I made just for them. And this one's for the children. I like them too. It's a font called Truck King that I made for Simon & Schuster for a series of books called Truck Town. And there are dozens and dozens of these books coming out. It was cool because I got to put truck parts in it. This one's got a muffler and some bolts. And that's by John Cheska, is the writer, and he's an amazing children's book author. I think he did the Stinky Cheese Man. Anybody read that? It's a good one. And so yeah, it's called Truck King. This is a version of the font I call Trucker's Speed that has little action lines on it. Good, delicious ice cream and to make money that keeps the company sustainable. And that's my handwriting font. You see I'm a lefty, it's kind of messed up. It's a cursive, but it's not a very good one. So that's... There used to be a website called Look at This Crappy Ampersand. It happens a lot where people work really hard on a font and then the ampersand just comes on at the last minute and it's awful. Oh, and then I get to do lots of work with Ben & Jerry's. I really like them a lot. I like eating their ice cream, and I like making fonts for them. And I like working with one of the most recognizable custom fonts there is, that when you see this font, you know that that's Ben & Jerry's, right? It's the Ben & Jerry's font. And I didn't do that. That was done by a scoop shop worker back in the 80s. But I got to help them make the medium weight and the bold weight of it. So I helped bring it into open type format for the new media for the future. But they're a good company. I like them. Indian Motorcycles. Wow, this is a 100-year-old motorcycle company with a really awesome logo. This is their historic logo, has always been a favorite, and we got to make a font for Cole McBoy to use on their promotional materials and their website. And again, working with the Minneapolis designer Ann Olku, she drew the uppercase and I did the lowercase, and we put it all together with all these special open type features for the finials and the ligatures and all those things. There comes a point where I get a little crazy with working on the computer that it kills your body to just sit there looking at the screen all the time. So I like to get out and I do paintings. So here's another aspect of my work. It's the murals. I paint walls. This is the Creative Lighting building. It's in St. Paul overlooking 94. And that's the part you see. This is the part you don't see so much. It faces west. And that's my liquor store font again, except in letters 10 feet tall. And I did that one all by myself, and I got to use the bricks as a grid. It was very helpful. This was on the east side of the building. This is the same Creative Lighting building. We made a mural with Adam Turman, who drew the lady on the bicycle. She's 15 feet tall. And that's my drunk cowboy font up there with custom swashes. And this is the back side of the building. This one's amazing. This is one of my favorite murals that I've worked on. Again, with Ann Olku and a writer named Van Horgan, and they did these 6-word stories every day, and this was one of them. And this faces out on the train tracks, and you can't see it from your car anywhere. You gotta walk around the building to see it. But the people that go from Minneapolis to Chicago every morning on the Empire Builder train, they could see it for about 3 seconds if they're on the left side of the train. This was just a surprise and a delight to see that they had used my liquor store font on the side of a skyscraper in Antwerp, Belgium, in a Dutch poem on the side of a skyscraper for a book festival. And it's a really excellent story about how this young skyscraper is in love with the 700-year-old cathedral on the other side of town, and how they could never be together because he's too young and she's too old, and all that stuff. So I did a translation of it over on East Hennepin. The lonely storefronts, yeah. So it said, "See me, take me, accept me," and I translated it from the Dutch to these little string of storefronts. And it's about these empty storefronts that are in love with the Clockwork Building across the street, and how they can never be together because East Hennepin goes between them. And this is me painting in the backyard. It's you can buy canvas on stretcher on rolls that are 6 feet tall, and I unrolled 2 of them on my fence in my backyard and spray painted and stenciled, and made this piece for the Coco Space downtown. It's a co-working collaborative workspace that people work at now, but it used to be the Minneapolis Grain Exchange. And this banner covers one of the old trading boards that they used to have the wheat prices on. So it used to be an exchange, and now it's a place where people exchange ideas. And I like that it covers up the old board because it was all Helvetica. That's something I would like to contribute to the world through my fonts, is to give everybody an alternative to Helvetica. I think we've seen enough of that one. And that's kind of the one thing that ties all my fonts together, that I've made hundreds of fonts, probably about 500 to 800 fonts, and they're all not Helvetica. And more recently, I've been working a lot with this famous British street artist named Ben Ine, and we got to paint this in the North Loop neighborhood, in the historic district. It's a neighborly day. He said, "Fuck punctuation." There's a typo in there. There's supposed to be an apostrophe, and he hates apostrophes. But I like the triple loop in the G. There's an extra hole. That's for fun. So here's what I've been working on now, is I'm making a book. That I want to make a book to show people my new fonts. I want to show off what I've been working on, and I was almost ready to publish it myself. Hold on. I was almost ready to publish it myself, but I realized that if I could get a few more dollars, I could get more copies printed, and my cost per unit would come down, and I could get embossing and all these other things. So I had a Kickstarter campaign, and I had a great Kickstarter coach who told me how he did it. He was a great, Jerry made the Choosatron machine and was a great success. And he taught me how to do Kickstarter, which I've been watching for years, and it was great. How many people have had Kickstarter projects? Any of y'all? You know what it is? You know what it is, okay. It was a smashing success. It went really well. I was very happy. I was able to raise a little extra money to get the book published. It's going to be a type specimen book primarily, but it'll show an index of all the fonts in the back of it. But through the course of the book, it's actually a story that goes from cover to cover. You can read it like a book. And instead of being a bunch of random statements that you see in a type specimen book, this one you can sit and read from cover to cover. And it's interesting because it's like a whole book that's made out of headlines, which you would think would be really annoying, but it turns into a real page turner, because it's only got like 30 to 50 words per page, so you can go through it really quick. And these are just rough proofs. It's not done yet. It's going to print next week, I think, but that's the Fauché font. This is the Nicotine font, again, and a little article about large print typewriters. There are a lot of great things in the book that I'm not showing you yet, but I wanted to mention that the writer, Peter Hajinian, did a great job. Ann Olkub did a great job as the designer, and it's almost done, but he wrote lots of clever little things that are in the book, like no haircut is complete without a compliment. I think that's about all my presentation. Thank you for coming out to listen to my Creative Morning presentation, and I look forward to your questions. And you can find me on the internet. I'm on the Twitter, the LinkedIn. There's a Chank Fonts page on Facebook. And my fonts, I used to sell my fonts myself, and now I sell them all through my distributors. So wherever you get fonts, you can find my stuff there through fonts.com or my fonts or Typekit or FontSpring or TypeDeck. There are lots of different places where you can see and purchase my fonts later if you want. Do we have any questions? I got a pencil for whoever asked the first question.
Score.
Yes.
So my sons are a big fan of your downloads.
The free fonts.
The free stuff.
Yeah,
And,
no. Yeah.
So we were talking, and they're big Wayne White fans. And I was wondering, are you familiar with Wayne White?
Wayne White. Yeah, I just
He created the Pee Wee Playhouse.
Yep.
Making all the word art and stuff. So I find it's pretty interesting that you're kind of, you're like typography, like working with artists, and you're making art yourself, on the walls and stuff like that. Can you tell us how that's kind of, going from typography to actually getting out into the, kind of the art world?
Well, I studied fine art at Macalester College, and so I learned about painting and drawing and printmaking and all those things first, and that's what I was taught. But I was more interested in the extracurricular stuff. I did the type as a passion because I liked working on the newspaper, the school newspaper, and that's where I learned to use fonts. And then when I was working on Cake, I learned how to make fonts, and I've always been making things. I've always been an artist. I was the youngest of 6 kids, that as long as I could keep busy, nobody would mess with me. That if I'd sit there drawing and making things, and I was taking care of myself and everybody was happy. I did this thing called The Artist's Way. Julia Cameron has a book about a 9-week program where you do these different activities every week, and I learned a lot about being a creative there. And so now I know that if I just keep going forward, things are going to be okay. That I'm not the world's best font maker. So there'll be people that'll help you along on your way that can keep busy. And the Wayne White documentary is amazing. He's a guy that paints letters, but you can see he's just exploding with creativity all the time. And he does things that don't make any sense too, which I really love. That he did Pee Wee's Playhouse, the set designs for all that back in the 80s, and he won a lot of awards for that. But in the movie, which is on Netflix, it's called Beauty is Embarrassing. Yeah. He makes this big Lyndon B. Johnson puppet.
Yeah.
That's huge.